Get ready to immerse yourself in a world of vision, inspiration, belonging, and empowerment. Brought to you by Naturals To Go, the VIBEcast is your gateway to realizing your entrepreneurial dreams. In each episode, we're here to ignite your entrepreneurial spirit, offering you the tools and insights you need to turn your dreams into reality. We're all about fostering a powerful vision, sparking inspiration, nurturing a sense of belonging, and providing the empowerment you need to thrive. So sit back, relax, and get ready to dive into the vibe. It's time to take your entrepreneurial journey to the next level. Thank you for joining us, and let's start living the vibe.
Hey folks, welcome to VIBEcast. This is Linda Ballesteros. I am your host today. Thanks so much for finding some time out of your busy day to spend with us. I know that we all would really probably like to have 26 hours in a day, but then we'd be wanting more. But I'm glad you found some time to spend with us. I recently read an article in Forbes, and the name of the article was Why Employees Are Quitting to Own Their Own Businesses. And they listed 5 compelling reasons, and you're going to love this. The first one was, I want to be my own boss. Have you ever said that before? 2, I want to do something that I'm passionate about. When I left my 30-plus year career in corporate, I told my boss when I left that day, he wanted to know if I was going to go to work for another bank. And I said, no, I need to do something that is more fulfilling. I need to do something that has passion in it. So if you're looking for that fulfilling opportunity, maybe you're looking to start your own business. Number 3, I want more flexibility. Number 4, I want to build real wealth. And number 5, I want to fill a need in my community. So those are some of the things we're going to be talking about today with my guest, Gina Johnson, who is the COO and president of BAI, and that's Business Alliance, Inc., as well as Brandon Clifford, who is the CEO. So please help me in welcoming them to our podcast today. Guys, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy day, because I know you're both very busy, to talk to our listeners.
Well, thank you, Linda.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Linda. As a good list, one thing I thought was cool is that not one of those top 5 was because I have a great idea.
Right. That's exactly right.
And that's why I think franchising is so great.
It is perfect, Brandon, because when I left corporate, I didn't have a clue as to what to do. And at that time, I really wasn't familiar with franchising. I wish someone had brought the idea to me. So before we get started here, I'd love to hear a little bit about your background. Gina, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what your role is with BAI?
Absolutely. So yes, Gina Johnson, and I have been with Business Alliance since 2010. So I started out as a franchise consultant. I was drawn to the business. I've always been an entrepreneur from day one. I mean, I started my own little recycle business in the neighborhood, to paper routes, to whatever it may be. But I was always going to be my own boss. And my husband's a chiropractor, so we've had our own chiropractic business. But I was introduced to franchise brokering from a friend of mine. And I'd done some commercial real estate and residential. And I thought it sounded wonderful, because you get to work with people that are looking to kind of change their life or add an additional income stream, and find out what was real important for them. So I started as a franchise consultant. I was doing that for a couple of years. And then Natalie Barnes, who was the president of our company at the time, asked me to come to the corporate office. So I went to the corporate office in 2013, and it has been an absolute joy ever since. Amazing group of people. I got to work closely with our brokers, and I still do, and our franchise partners. So a very, when I say enjoyable, I mean, there's not a ton of stress in this job. You get to talk to people. You get to talk to brokers who are helping people find a franchise, and our franchise partners who are having our brokers have them help find the right qualified candidate. So Business Alliance, the culture, the people, our brokers and our franchisors, it's enjoyable, and they're all amazing. But I look forward to talking to them each day and working each day. It sounds a little crazy, but it's I wouldn't be here this long if it wasn't.
Yeah, I love that, Gina, because it describes a position that is very flexible, but you have a lot of interesting things going on. And so I doubt that you get bored very often.
The days are busy, very, but fun. Each day is new, and it's a lot of fun. And of course, getting to work with Brandon has been an absolute joy.
That's great. Brandon, so tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Sure. No, it's funny. I actually didn't know that about Gina. Gina and I talk every single day, but I didn't know that she had a paper route. And it's funny, I actually had a paper route as well.
8 years.
Wow. When I was 9 years old, I had a paper route. It's funny. My sister started, she got a paper route. She was going to do it or whatever. She did it for like a week and like didn't want to do it anymore. And I was like, wait a minute. I was like, I can make money. I can do this. I'm like, okay, I'll take that paper route. And I was like, oh, can I have it? I think I wasn't technically old enough, but because my sister still like did it, like had it, I was able to do it. I mean, this is back in the 80s, and it's crazy how the world has changed. I couldn't imagine. I have 4 children, but my youngest is 11, and I mean, so that's 2 years older than I was. I couldn't imagine him doing a paper right now. Although he's a great kid, he works hard, he does good in school and all that stuff. I just couldn't see. I don't know, maybe I'm overprotective, allowing him to be out riding his bike around at people's houses.
Times are different.
Different, right? Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's how I got my start, and I've always sort of worked for myself too. I owned restaurants, at an early age, and it was kind of when I was transitioning out of the restaurant space, because when I started as a restaurateur, I was newly married, I had no kids, and then fast forward 12 years later, I had 4 children, and I'd been married for 12 years, and it was just the restaurant space wasn't the right fit anymore. So I was transitioning out of that, sold 2 of my restaurants, and my partner bought me out on the 3rd one. And was kind of in between thinking what I was going to do next. That's when I found franchise brokerage, actually similar to Gina, and I got into the BAI network as a consultant or a broker, and I really enjoyed it. I loved the spot that I was in, where I was this matchmaker, kind of inspiring people to bet on themselves and invest in a franchise, and able to kind of like vicariously invest in all these different brands through other people's money, quote unquote, right? And so it was really fun. I really enjoyed it quite a bit. And I love the BAI network. I mean, I remember, again, Natalie Barnes, our previous president and CEO, who I was talking to during my due diligence phase of investigating becoming a broker, asking her about her aspirations and her goals and where she was going to take BAI. And she like stopped me very, very quickly. And she was like, oh, no, Brandon, BAI is not about me. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, we're an organization about others. Like, our goal is to make all of our brokers as successful as they want to be, and all of our brands find as many franchisees as they want to be. It has nothing to do with me. And I kind of took that in the back of my brain, and, I've kind of lived by that in this franchising world, like ever since then. And Natalie and I have always had a really good relationship, and it was kind of funny how your career takes you in different paths. I was a broker for about 7 years, and then some brands came knocking and were trying to recruit me to go onto their onto the other side and head up their development departments and whatnot. I had one particular brand in the senior care space. The industry kind of spoke to me quite a bit. It seemed like a really good fit. And I actually went back and was talking to Natalie about it. And it was funny. I was part of her president's circle, one of the top brokers in the network. And she actually pushed me to leave the BAI network and go do this and go take this other opportunity. She's like, I think this would be a good fit for you. You'll get a little more global perspective on franchising. And she's like, but mark my words, someday you're going to come back to BAI. And she's like, potentially, I feel like you might be able to sit in my seat. And I was like, that's interesting. And so then we kind of kept in touch over the years. I spent 5 years at a brand, again, learned a global perspective on franchising, started working with brokers on the other side of the table. I'm working with franchise suppliers as well, just getting a much more full understanding of the franchise business model. And then, one thing led to another. And as time went by, it seemed like a good time for me to come back to BAI. And so now, since January 1st of 2023, I came on as the COO at that time, spent 1.5 years in that role, and then eventually stepped into Natalie's seat, and she has since retired, and and she's off to greener pastures in retirement. We still keep in touch. The three of us are still very close, and Gina, Natalie, and I. It's been a good story, good ride.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And since you both started out as consultants, Gina, tell me a little bit about what BAI offers their brokers, their consultants, that helps to set them up for success. Clearly, you were both very successful as consultants. So what does BAI offer to help others come in as a broker consultant to make them successful?
Well, I think it all starts from just that initial validation and calls when you're talking to an individual interested in being a consultant broker. We have an amazing team in place, but we want to make sure it's a great fit for this new consultant as well as business alliance. So we get to go through a lot of validation, which I think is really, really good for both the potential franchisee or potential consultant and also potential for us on our end. Will they make a good representation of business alliance? So they'll go through an initial call. They'll have a call with me. And then if I feel it'd be a good fit, they then get an opportunity to do anywhere from 3 to maybe 6 validation calls with existing consultants to hear from them. What was your first year like? How was business alliance as a support, the training, and so they'll have a good week or two of doing some validation. We get feedback from the brokers and also that initial potential consultant, and then they'll get a chance to talk to our chief growth officer, Don Shin, and also Heath Turner, who's our director of affiliate support. And from there, as the approval process goes through, then they'll have a call with Brandon for that kind of final call and approval. And we've had some amazing resumes with people that have come through with Business Alliance, but all kind of starts with the culture. So once they've been approved, we have a very structured training and onboarding process. We want them to be successful. Our model, the way our part of our income stream is based off of the success of our brokers when they do a deal. So what I that's one of the things I really love about Business Alliance is, we're vested in these consultants, their success, which for them is having a new client that will have a new franchisee for our new franchise partner. So the three of us working together as a team works. And Business Alliance has been around since 1991, and each year we're evolving, but this has been just an amazing model. And we all kind of put our money where our mouth is. Her mouth where, yeah. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. So Gina, when you're going through that interview process with them, are you looking for someone specifically that has business background, that maybe has coming out of corporate? What makes a really good broker for you guys?
Well, we've had people coming from that were engineers, CEOs, in the fashion industry, past franchise owners, but truly it's someone that is personable, a good listener, someone that, we don't have anybody that needs to really pitch and sell. It's good conversations, good listening. Obviously, we have help them with their business structure, and we have a very structured training in place to how to launch this business, getting leads, how to be successful. But they come from all different backgrounds, but truly, you can tell a lot. We do Zoom calls over with those initial calls, but someone that's very personable. Brandon, would you add anything that you think that?
Yeah, no, I think you have to be a people person. I mean, you hit the nail on the head that it's not necessarily a sales role at all. It's more of like a lot of HR managers would probably make really good fits, because you're listening to people and you want to put them in a position to be successful, so while that, it can come from a lot of different industries. And sure, if someone has owned a business in the past or owned a franchise, it might appear that, they have a little more credibility, so to speak, when they're talking to a candidate. But at the end of the day, like, if you fill out a form online to talk to someone about owning a franchise and then your phone rings, you're a little nervous. It's like that, oh, I got to actually talk to somebody, and then so then if you pick up that phone, it comes through very quickly if that other person the person on the other side of the phone is trying to immediately push you into a sales funnel and try to sell you. So you have to be genuinely interested in people, like that's like, and just want to have meaningful conversations with people. That's what makes a successful BAI broker.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Now, Brendan, Gina talked about culture, your company's culture. Can you expand a little bit about that? Because it seems that I see a lot in the news these days how important culture is. Tell me a little bit about the BAI culture.
Yeah, and it can sound a little canned in a sense, and sometimes just like, jargon. But really, especially in this business, like, it's part of our support strategy because, this is a work from home solopreneur type role, which sounds great. And it's like, you can kind of set your own schedule, you can do your own thing. But, I remember personally even, coming from the restaurant world where I had three locations. I had like 40 employees. Most of them called in sick, right? So I had a lot of problems. And so I didn't have to have a strategic plan. I could just show up to work on any day of the week and the problems would come to me and I would put out the fires, right? And same thing could be said for probably all of our current brokers and even future ones, because they typically do have a good resume. Like Gina said, if you get to the point where you're now comfortable with working from home and you have a good environment at home and whatnot, a bandwidth to do that, you've probably had some success in your career, right? But now the challenge is you go from being the person who had 20 direct reports or whatnot, and you just help them solve their problems. So I got nobody reporting to me. It sounds great. That's what they want, is to get rid of all the direct reports. But now it's like, well, what do I do with my day? And so part of our support structure is actually creating a culture where you have opportunities to, yes, remain independent, and yes, set your own schedule, and yes, work from the beach or from anywhere you can get an internet signal or a phone signal, right? But give them opportunities to plug into mastermind groups, to plug into support calls with their affiliate relationship manager, to plug into continuing education webinars, just things that make you feel connected to something so you don't fall into the trap of, just refreshing your inbox and looking for that next lead that's coming in, because then it becomes a little bit of a grind, and that's how people get burnt out.
Absolutely. You're exactly right, Brendan. And, I know that you have both been in the industry for some time, so you've probably seen some changes over the last few years in maybe the types of companies that are now appearing as emerging brands. Some of the industries that are now are now represented as a franchise opportunity. Gina, what would you say you are seeing that you see some changes in the trend in even the last 5 or 10 years?
Well, usually when someone thinks of a franchise, they think of that food industry. That's the most common. And what I've seen over the last, 5 years probably, is you see so many more home-based businesses and the service businesses, those that, weren't so glamorous, like the gutter cleaners, the house painters and things like that. There's a huge increase in those type of franchises. I mean, wouldn't you say, Brandon, that they probably outpace the majority of closed deals?
Home services has been booming, and it's because I think those are very fragmented industries where in the past it's been a chuck in a truck or a contractor or a handyman who's like a jack of all trades, and someone needs their home power washed, they would need the siding washed, and the local contractor does it kind of begrudgingly because he really wants to be doing carpentry or whatnot, like his trade, but he doesn't have enough steady stream of leads coming in there. So he takes this job and then it's a bad experience for the customer or whatnot, right? So what franchising is doing is they're taking those kind of fragmented, sort of dirty, I guess, industries, putting in like a white collar, atmosphere, professional branding, estimates and bids, invoicing, billings and collections, taking off the shoulders of those very important handymen who do the labor. They don't have to do the stuff they don't like to do anymore because the franchisee does it, and then they can just get booked on their jobs. So it's kind of a win-win for the tradesmen who want the jobs, who want to just do their work, right? And then now you're able to have a professional who can actually earn a C-level salary running these businesses. And so we see a huge boom, everything from, like you said, paint, window washing, gutter cleaning, like niche services, repairing drywall, duct cleaning. It's like anything that has to do with a home is booming right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a trend I wanted to just talk about real quick. Maybe it's sort of self-serving in a way, but it's pretty neat. I've seen there's actually been it's kind of a double-edged sword. There's been a lot of legislative kind of, I don't know, hubbub or news or gossip or whatever you want to call it, right? Legislative challenges that have been coming in the franchising space, circling around third-party franchise sellers, which are franchise brokers, right? In a way, anyone who has conversations with potential candidates, influences the sale, whatever, it's a third-party franchise seller, right? Not necessarily someone who works directly for the brand, but a buyer's agent or a seller's agent, that's a third-party seller, right? And some people get a little, defensive or nervous about those things happening. I think it's exciting because what it is it's a trend. It's showing that, there's going to be a day that's coming in the not too distant future, in my opinion, that if you're a candidate, if Linda, you're interested in buying a franchise, you're going to retain the services of an independent franchise broker, a BAI broker, who's going to be your buyer's representation. No different than a real estate transaction, where if there's no law that states you must use a buyer's agent, but if you were going to go buy a house right now, you find a broker to work with, right?
Right.
And so 15 years ago, that wasn't the case. I would say it was, maybe, what would you say, Gina? 70% of franchises were sold, just through the website of the brand or whatnot, without the services of a broker, right? And now it's getting closer to 50-50, maybe even 60-40. Most people are starting to use brokers because it's becoming more well-known. And that's why the legislative, arm is coming in to regulate the industry, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it's actually only going to be a benefit to professionalize the space quite a bit. I'm excited for that change.
Yeah, that's really good to know because when there is some legislature around it, then we're all playing by the same set of rules, yes. Right? And we need to know that, that everybody's playing by the same set of rules. So when you have someone, a franchisee, a brand new franchisee, somebody that, whether they want to keep their corporate job, whether they want to do this semi-absentee or they want to do it full time, what do y'all have in place where you can help to support that franchisee as they're looking, potential franchisee, as they're looking at those different models? Because there are so many different models out there. We just talked about a few of those. So how do y'all support that new owner-operator or that new owner as they launch their business, and maybe they've never owned a business before?
Yeah, I mean, like I don't mind if you're okay, Gina, kind of taking a little bit of this first, because I saw it firsthand when I was on the brand side, and I've heard this from many other franchisor friends that I have. The reason why they love working, not just with BAI, but with brokers in general, but they oftentimes say your brokers, is because the franchisees, and this is like empirical data that they use, they end up being better franchisees. They usually hit higher numbers in the first year. They also stay in business longer. They have more success than people who just come off the street. And I believe it's because of what you're talking about, the upfront due diligence that, well-trained, hopefully all of our BAI brokers take them through before they even get to the franchise company, right? So if I intersected with you as a potential franchisee, Linda, today, I would probably have at least 3 conversations, like hour-long conversations with you to get to know you, to understand your passions, your desires, your wants, your wills, your financial components. I'd have you talk to a lender. So that's another hour conversation outside of me, right? I'd have you take a personality assessment to not just like guess, oh, you like pets, maybe you should own a pet store. No, like let's look at like who you are as an individual and what you're good at and what you're not so good at, and then find a role of an owner that you're going to thrive in, because then you're going to be very happy. You're going to get excited to wake up in the morning and go to work. And that's what's going to lead to success, right? And so you're doing all this front end work, like I said, hours worth of conversations and then the research that the broker does to find 3 or 5 brands that may or may not be a fit, and then get the candidate excited to let's go learn now about these different brands, and take some time, one week at a time, and narrow it down to then make a really, really smart decision. So then where a lot of I think kind of apprehension or I guess contention between franchisees and franchisors come from is the grayness of, am I ready to open my business? Like, is this the right thing? Like buyer's remorse, like that kind of stuff that creeps into any sort of large financial decision, right? If the franchisee is second guessing themselves when they're supposed to be onboarding and training to launch their franchise location, and if they don't feel like they did a good job of doing the due diligence on the front end, that franchisee is probably not going to last the first year. They're probably going to fail. Maybe 18 months, depending on their financial bandwidth. But if they've done a good job, they've done their homework, and they've done their due diligence, to where they're launching their business. That's not the finish line. The signing of the franchise agreement is not the finish line. That's the starting line of the race. So what our brokers really are like trainers and coaches who are getting an athlete ready to run a marathon.
Well, that's a good description there. Brandon, you'll appreciate this. I was working with a candidate quite a few years ago, and he said, Linda, I want a restaurant. And I said, restaurant? So what is your background in your restaurant industry? Because right now you're a salesperson for educational software. And he said, well, I don't have any. And I said, oh, so does that mean that you're bringing a partner in that knows about restaurant and the food industry? He said, no. And I said, you understand restaurant is a horse of a different color, so to speak. And I said, why a restaurant? He said, Linda, I love eating out.
Yeah.
And I said,
get a B2B business where you can be out in the field all day, right?
Absolutely.
I told him, my response to him was, then I would suggest that we look at another industry and you eat out as much as you want, because once you own a restaurant, you will not enjoy that.
No, and it actually seems to. It's funny because you go out to eat at places and you're just looking at like, what? Why are they doing that? Oh, that's interesting. They do it that way. Yeah, you're never actually like enjoying your meal.
Exactly. So, Gina, what do you have to add to what Brandon was saying about setting your franchisees up and with the support they need, with the right brokers that help them identify not a restaurant just because they love to eat out?
Yes, I hear you. And it's funny. Subway was the one that people would come to me and say, I want a Subway. And then I talk to them and they're, well, I really don't want to work weekends. I don't want to have many employees.
I don't want minimum wage employees either.
Yeah. So it's like, well, I think that's fantastic, but let me give you some other ideas,
Yeah.
But it does. It goes to finding out, drilling in, what is that client's why? And our brokers do an amazing job on that communication. They're all, successful. They listen really well to their clients. What we have at Business Alliances, we have a franchise sales accelerator course that they take as they're onboarding. It's 20 hours of some online sales training. They'll have 3 days of one-on-one with our Chief Growth Officer and also our Director of Affiliate Support, Heath Turner. And then somebody that is dedicated to help them with that business launch and setup with their CRM, their website. And we have a social media tool that's amazing with Rallyo for them. And like Brandon said, that personality assessment. And so we're launching them and getting their business set up in their education and getting the business set up in those first couple of months to prep them to where when they're working with their leads, they've got a good arsenal. Our brand link, and back office that the brokers use. We have just over 370 franchises in our inventory. And even those, we don't we audit our franchises. We want to make sure they're financially strong. They have a good development team in place, litigations, anything like that. So each year we'll audit these brands when we get their FDDs, looking at the strength and kind of the happenings behind each brand. We have an amazing team in place for our franchisors. We have a director of franchise development, Christina McGarvey. She knows how to support them and make sure that our brokers have the proper information. But to kind of go back, we have a team in place, educational tools to where their business that first month, 2 month, 3 month, 6 month, and then ongoing roundtables and coaching calls that are supported these brokers throughout their time with us.
Mm-hmm. And Gina, you touched on a couple of things that kind of lead me into my next question about technology. Technology has to be factored into every business. I can't imagine a business out there that could do their business without technology of some sort. So how have y'all brought technology in to better support your brokers and even your franchisees? What do y'all offer? I know you've mentioned some online training and all, but what else is it that technology has helped you guys with?
We brought on this year, and we're really excited about it. It's a community hub called FranLink, and I'm going to let Brandon, I'll give you some highlights, but this is something we're extremely excited about. It's a way where we talked about earlier how we're all home based, and working out on your own little island, and where everyone wanting to be part of a community, to feel connected. Well, with our FranLink, we're able to have our franchise partners, our franchise brokers, and our suppliers all have one central hub to communicate, to learn, to support with each other. And it's a real game changer. It's quite exciting. But Brandon's had a lot of work behind this, and I'm going to pass it to him for.
Monitoring technology is huge. It's something that I feel like I'm always looking at what's coming next. And you think about AI, leveraging GPT or the other open AI platforms that are out there. In some ways, it's a little scary because it makes you wonder. I think about the calculator quite a bit and how, back in pre-calculators, people could do math probably very quickly because they had to, right? And then now you go into a store, and if it wasn't for like that electronic POS system, would that person be able to give me back change? I don't know if they would. Right? And so it's sometimes technology can be a little scary in that regards, because like with ChatGPT, like, is it going to zap creativity, for it? Like, will people actually be able to have their own original thoughts? Will they be able to write blog posts and stories and, and books, right? And then that's an important thing in culture, in my opinion. So I'm hopeful that people will use, and then at the end of the day, you can't be a Luddite. You have to be able to understand the technology and use it for good, right? To help yourself streamline things. And it's great. I use AI to give me a head start on a lot of content creation and things like that. I could take an article and, that would take me 3 hours or even a full day to write. I can get it done in 30 minutes now with the help of a tool like that. And even, we're sampling some things right now for cold email outreach for our brokers, lead generation, things like that, utilizing these platforms without getting anybody too excited who's listening to this. This is 2025, 2026, 2027 type stuff. But that's like where I'm looking now, because the last 2 years we were working very hard on what Gina was talking about, this community hub platform, because the franchising space, it's a big industry. I mean, there's, over 7,000 franchises registered with the Federal Trade Commission. I think 780,000 or something like that franchise units in the country, in that range, almost 800,000. It's like 1 in 7 businesses on Main Street. If you walk down the street, they're a franchise, and so it's very wide. And that's not even taking into account the ripple effect, the suppliers that we touched about, the companies that supply services to the franchise industry, whether it's a lead generation company, a CRM platform, a franchise attorney, a lender, or even, people who create boxes for your Big Mac to go in, right? Like those kind of companies. There's a ripple effect from franchising that happens as well, which is really exciting, and a whole other podcast for us to talk about, right, Linda?
Yeah.
But that's what FranLink really does, is it gives a platform for all those different parties to connect with one another, share best practices, and grow their businesses together. It also has, we have a lot of e-learning that's housed on there. Our onboarding process for our new brokers is on there. We are planning to also roll out an accreditation course for our brokers in 2025 that will all be housed in FranLink. So they'll be able to take the courses, achieve certifications, badges, things like that, all in the platform. So yeah, technology is an ever-changing part, and if you're not paying attention to it as a business, it's, you don't want to be the MySpaces of the world that Facebook passes you by, right?
Exactly. Well, it sounds like FranLink has become maybe the water cooler. You've created some place for people to gather and to exchange ideas, and just to feel like they're not in this alone. Because I have to tell you, that was one of the biggest struggles that I had when I started working from home is, the great thing about working for yourself is you can do anything you want. Mm-hmm. And the downside is you can do anything you want, So it's great to have a place where people are in the same situation, maybe different levels of knowledge and expertise and experience, to be able to toss out your ideas or your concerns or your questions and have somebody respond to you.
Yeah. No, and if you're listening to this now, FranLink is a membership platform. It's closed just to the BAI members today. Down the road, we will have free portions of it, but if you go to businessallianceinc.com, there's a little button where you can learn about FranLink. It says our members only platform, or at least gives you an overview if you want to learn more about it, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've come down to the end of the podcast, but I'd like to ask each of you if there's something that, there's something that you would like to share with anyone that maybe they're thinking about becoming a broker, or maybe they've never thought of it, but they want to explore it now. So if someone is listening and maybe they'd like to consider this franchise broker concept, Gina, what would you suggest that they do?
Well, I'm glad Brandon mentioned the website, because I'd say go to the website and then they would get a time that we'd get to talk to them. My own personal experiences as a franchise consultant, it was a very rewarding role for me. And I was working from home. I was able to really kind of adjust my schedule, which was great. I also have 4 children. And at the time, they were little. So it worked for my lifestyle. But, you get to have conversations, and you get to take people through a process and introduce them to franchises that they may not have ever known existed. But we have our brokers have such a wealth of knowledge that after talking to a potential franchisee, they're able to guide them. They can learn 3 or 4 different types of franchises. And like Brandon said, introduce them to a funding partner, and prepare them to properly then go talk to a franchise developer who will then tell them about that franchise. But they can make a very educated decision, take their time, and have a franchise consultant guide them through. And as a consultant, it's rewarding. And I worked a lot of my local market with the local franchisees and people in my local market. So it was great to see our community grow and people that I knew become owners. So it was very rewarding.
I love that. And Brandon, what would you add?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, of course, if you're considering being a broker, I think I would echo Gina's comments that it's a really fun space to be. It's kind of like that, which you hinted as well, one of those roles where you're like always but never working. So if you're wired that way, it's a good fit for you. Where you're not afraid to be texting candidates from the playground with your with your kids. If you like that kind of atmosphere, it's a good fit for you. And yeah, I mean, I think that at the end of the day, it is important to be connected to a network, and we're doing everything we can to build that culture. And I'm really excited for the future. I think there's a lot of positive momentum happening, not only in the franchising world, but in business in general. I think that our country's been through a lot over the last 4 years. That's safe to say at this point, and I believe that the future is bright. So.
Ooh, absolutely. Very good. Well, I want to thank you both for being here and sharing more about BAI. And those of us at Naturals to Go, we certainly value our reputation and our relationship with you and your brokers as well. And, just know that we are always here to support you. And we love being in partnership with folks like yourself.
We absolutely appreciate you.
Yeah, good people.
Yeah, very good. So, folks, if you're not following us on YouTube, be sure to do that so you can see future episodes and also catch some of the past episodes. And you know that I always leave you with a quote. And this one is by Walt Disney. It goes like this: "Our dreams can come true. I have the courage, if you have the courage, to pursue them." So that's exactly what Gina and Brandon were talking about today. You may have always had that dream of owning your own business, but they can come true. And what makes it easier is you have someone to help navigate you through that process. And that's exactly what BAI consultants do, is they will help navigate you through a very complicated, sometimes complicated process. So thanks again for being with us today on VIBEcast, and just until next time, go out and live the vibe.
That's a wrap for this episode of the VIBEcast. We hope you've been inspired and empowered on your entrepreneurial journey. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on all your favorite platforms to stay connected with the Vibe community. Until next time, keep nurturing that strong vision, fueling your inspiration, and embracing a sense of belonging and empowerment. Your dreams are within reach, so keep living the vibe.